And he's like, oh, that's amazing. And he goes to go on the air, and I, as an update anchor, would walk out of the studio to go back to my desk area. And he goes, Keith, I want you to wait for a second. And we ended up spending 10 minutes talking about Connecticut high school sports, which at the time, I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. I'm just chilling, hanging out with the Mad Dog, right? But in hindsight, I go, wow, that must have been terrible radio on a national sports talk radio. We're breaking down like New Canaan versus Greenwich on the Turkey Bowl game 2009.
That's amazing. Mike Quick would have loved that whole segment.
Oh, Quickie's the best.
Keith, that Mad Dog impression was pretty good. You've met a lot of people throughout the years. Are there any other impressions you could do pretty spot on like that, or what?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I guess I could do Francesa a little bit, right? I love New York. I love New York. Next caller. I love New York.
Keith, maybe next year or in 2 years when the Islanders are in their new stadium at Belmont, you and him could be doing some stuff together, because Francesa is going to be in the building, obviously.
Yeah, I'm sure he will actually. I'm sure he will be there. He has gone such an interesting path right now with all of his business moves, but he is one of the pioneers of kind of the reason why a lot of us are able to do what we can do because of Francesa and Russo.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. So Keith, you also did an interesting job here, where you're doing play-by-play for the Nippon Professional Baseball League, the KHL Russian Hockey League, and the Chinese Basketball Association. So I'm assuming you're somewhere in a booth in the Northeast, and you're up in the middle of the night doing these games. Is that correct?
Yes. So that job is no more because that network doesn't exist anymore. It was One World Sports. I believe now there are 11 up, but they don't do things as live anymore. But yeah, when I was doing that, it was actually me and Ed Cohen, who's now the voice of the New York Knicks. We were alternating back and forth this. So yeah, so Nippon Professional Baseball League, like dude, literally we would go on the air at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm in this little tiny booth with 4 TV screens in front of me. I've got my on-site producer, and by the way, it was in Connecticut. Sanford, Connecticut is where we recorded it. So I had my one producer there. I had a video editor, and then there was like a research assistant. 3 people with me, that's it. But when we do this, we're taking the live feed from whether it's Japan or whether it's Chinese basketball or whether it was the Russian Hockey League, KHL, or CHL too, which we did as well, which was European hockey. So we're taking their feed. So imagine that you're doing the broadcast and they just decide to pump in whatever highlight they want. I have to react to it. So like for KHL, when we did ska, they were really big into showcasing their cheerleaders. They had dancers and cheerleaders that would go up and down their aisles at an ice hockey rink. And randomly, they would just start showcasing their cheerleaders and pull away from the game. And I have to now talk about that. So yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Was there ever any instance where, I guess like you say, oh, Shohei Ohtani comes to America, everyone's like, wow, this guy's incredible. And you were like, well, I already seen him play for many years. I knew exactly what this guy could do.
Can we talk about Emmanuel Mudiay, who he was the first player to not go to college. He went straight from high school and decided to go to the CBA instead. I was actually on that Chinese Basketball Association broadcast doing the play-by-play when he twisted his ankle going up for a layup, and then he didn't play again, and he sat out the rest of the CBA. But he was like our marquee. Obviously, Stephon Marbury was the real marquee guy. But that season, with Mudiay making that jump, we basically broadcasted every Emmanuel Mudiay game.
Yeah, Mudiay is definitely a pioneer here, because now you're seeing, at least this year, a lot of the high school athletes have decided they're going to just go and jump to the G League, which I think for a lot of these athletes is the smart move. So Keith, obviously you're pretty much most well known for your work every Sunday on Tops of the pregame show on CBS Sports Network. How did you get into fantasy, and how did you end up becoming the fantasy expert for this awesome show on CBS?
It's a dream come true, to be honest. So I think like most of us, I was a fantasy football player, a fantasy baseball player, a fantasy basketball player. I didn't do hockey as much, messed around every once in a while, but as soon as it blew up, I was all in. I was in many leagues and stuff like that. And I had started doing a podcast just for fun so this is going on year 5, so 2014. And I was like, you know what? I just want to do it for fun. I was doing a 22-minute fantasy football podcast during the football season in 2014. It did well, but there were a few executives that happened to come across it. And my agent had mentioned to me, hey, so, CBS Sports Network is going to be looking for a fantasy expert. I'm gonna be submitting you in. They know who you are. They're definitely going to want to meet with you. I'm like, great. So I go in for a meeting. I meet with the 2 executive producers. Deb Gelman is still there. The other producer has moved on to just a different role in CBS Sports Network. And we sit down and we just start having a casual conversation. It wasn't like your typical, prim and proper interview where I was nervous or anything like that. I mean, I knew that they knew my stuff, so I wasn't nervous about that. Went in. And there was some quizzy type of stuff like, oh, if this player, this, that, whatever. And I'm always prepared. And I walked out and I remember calling my wife and saying, listen, I don't know if they'll definitely pick me for this, but I literally could not have done better in that interview. I have never walked out of an interview feeling better than I did in that one. And I guess it was a couple days later, my agent called me and said, they're going to offer you the job. And there you go. And then that first season, it was me and Jeff Ratcliffe as the main fantasy experts or analysts, whatever you want to call them, fanalists, some people say. And John Schriffen was the host of those segments. Schriff has now left. He's still with CBS Sports Network doing sideline reporting. And they slid me into the kind of hosting role of those segments plus expert. And now me and Jeff do those together as kind of co-hosts and fantasy experts.
That's awesome. I love that story. Keith, I used to work at CBS Sports. I alluded to it at the top of the show. I used to do freelance work there, and I used to work the ticker on Saturdays. And very occasionally, I would come in very early Sunday. I would stay in the corner of the bullpen, the very front row, all the way to the left. I don't know if you've ever seen me frequented in there. I've seen a lot of people come through there. One guy in particular, you probably know pretty well. His name is Adam Shine. Now, anybody who knows or has been around Adam Shine knows that guy is funny as freaking hell. Give me your best Adam Shine story right off the top of your head.
My best Adam Shine story,
or at least an impersonation, Keith, since you're on a roll with those impersonations.
Oh my goodness, no, I'm not going to do an Adam Shine impersonation. I got to give this some thought. There's a lot of good ones. I like his interaction with Amy Trask. This was about 3-4 years ago. He had fallen in love with, was it a Kesha song? And it was like a remake of an old song. And Amy was so mad at him that he thought that it was better. It was better than the original, and playfully angry. And they just went back and forth, joking. And he, this is not on tape, this is nowhere, but he ended up singing a little bit of that song in his Adam Shine voice. It was absolutely fantastic. And the other thing I'll say about him is that the boisterous personality of him, that's not fake. He really is that guy. We get there and we're in that bullpen at 5:55, 6 o'clock in the morning. And he loves to give you a round of applause when you walk in. Doesn't matter whether you're one of his co-hosts. Doesn't matter whether you're a producer. Doesn't matter whether you're a showrunner. That's the person that's getting the coffee for people. He really does, and he also gets to know everyone's names too. So it's pretty impressive. And I like when I meet people who are at the pinnacle of their careers that aren't a jerk. Let's just put it that way. They really are legitimately just good people.
So the reason why I asked you about the Shine story, my story is that I bonded with him, believe it or not, in the bathroom. Now, what makes the story even better was that morning was a kind of like pajama theme going on in the office.
Oh my God, that was New Year's
Syracuse
New Year's Day
onesie.
That's New Year's Day, 2000 and either 15 or 16. I was wearing a Tennessee Titans pajama T-shirt and Tennessee Titans blue like flannel pants, and they got me Tennessee Titans slipper booties as well.
Yeah, I remember that. I think I was there. I think it was 2017, I believe.
Okay, 17. Okay.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so we're going to move on to your other co-hosts and other people that you work with. I myself graduated from Marist, right? So I am a Red Fox. So you may know the direction where I'm going in.
Yep.
There's a certain host on your set who is a graduate of Marist. Mm-hmm. Somebody you may know pretty well. Somebody you may have actually been separated at birth with. And you listen, you know, you look like him. You know, it's not really like probably a shock to you. But tell me a little bit about Brandon Tierney. Tell me about working with him, because I've met him before multiple times. He's a great guy, great family man, just like you. Give me some love for Tierney. You know, what's it like working with him?
BT's the best, and it's funny that you mentioned about that we look alike. We both joke that we DVR the shows, and whether it's when we get home, if we could sneak it in, otherwise, that night or the next day, we like skim through just to like our parts. You always want to critique yourself, and we both say that there are so many times we stop on each other like by accident because we think that nope, that's not me. Keep going. Anyway, I guess that's partially the bald heads, but BT, I will tell you that he welcomed me and Jeff, who joined the program after they had already been doing the show for 3 years without us, with open arms, as did everybody. But I remember like BT sending me a private message saying how great it is to have me aboard. Like it was a real like heartfelt moment of him just taking a little time out for me, which was really cool. And being that we both have children, we both definitely bond over that. He'll randomly come in, he's like, Keith, let me just show you. And he'll like show me a video of like his son hitting a baseball or his daughter drawing something. And he'll ask me, oh, like you said your older son had that football game this week, and how'd it go? And like, we'll talk about that. And we do discuss gambling as well. And if you follow BT, he definitely on like Tiki and Tierney, they do their gambling segments and stuff. So we talk about that a lot too. But BT he is another just genuine dude. Like he's the guy that you want to hang out, like shoot the breeze with. And maybe, I don't really play golf very much, but play some golf,
Yeah, definitely some great people on that show. I worked with Chris Samus, who I think you worked with maybe one season on that show. So he was great. But another place that I worked at with you is the NHL MLB Network, and incredible people throughout that building. Tell us about how you ended up getting a position, or at least an audition first with the network.
Yeah, I was in a couple of years ago for an audition, and it ended up actually being between me and one other person. They went back and forth for a while, and the other person actually got it. And I was told, listen, we want you, and the minute there's another opening, you're gonna get it. And like 9 months later, there was an opening. They really did. They hired me. But I actually originally thought that I was getting a job for baseball. I thought it was going to be DAZN and MLB Network. And so I got hired, paperwork was signed and stuff like that. And I thought I was getting hired for baseball. But last minute they switched and said, hey, listen, with your extensive NHL background and calling Russian hockey and doing the voiceovers for the NHL, we actually want to switch you over to the NHL. We're going to move you to NHL Network. And I said, great. So March of last year, 2019, I do my first show, and it was a blast. I was with was I with Bill Lindsay for that one? Whatever. It was a bunch of so many shows, and we just from there it went running. And because I had the baseball background too, the minute they started needing baseball people, I became me and Freddie Lomalee were probably the top two fill-ins for Change Up on DAZN. And it was great. I ran through that building and never stopped. And I can't wait for NHL and MLB to be back so I can start working again.
Absolutely. And, I believe you told me that, when you first started, Tony Luffman kind of,